Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode, or you can consider the 25th episode, depending on your history with Focus and Stop Doing Nothing, of the High Achiever Talk Hour. And this first couple of ones will be Talk Half Hour. I am your host, Patrick Allman. And if you are here, you probably are a fan of our Facebook page, which is at facebook.com/stopdoingnothing, or the actual Stop Doing Nothing website, stopdoingnothing.com, or the Twitter account, or the LinkedIn group. It doesn't really matter how you found us. What is really important is that you are here, you are listening, you have an open mind, you are willing to learn, and you're willing to commit to your growth and your self-improvement. My name is Patrick Allman. I own a company called Focus Consulting and the brand Stop Doing Nothing, and we're based here in Oklahoma City, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to be here talking to you today. Just real quick, if you're taking notes, I was going to give you a phone number. And if you're listening to this in a recorded segment, then obviously the phone number won't be live. But otherwise, if you're listening right now live, you can call in to 424-222-5282 if you want, and drop me your time management questions. Drop me some of the tips that you've learned about time management in amongst while I'm going over my own time management tips. The first couple of episodes of the Blog Talk Radio show for Stop Doing Nothing are probably only going to be a half an hour long while I understand what's going on, while we build our audience, things like that. After that, I'm hoping to grow to a full hour. For those of you that have to drop off, I was going to point out this will also be available as a podcast in the iTunes store, as well as you can go to the Blog Talk Radio station anytime at blogtalkradio.com/stopdoingnothing and listen to past episodes. Pick up on the iTunes feed, pick up on the RSS feed. There's going to be a plethora of ways to catch up on this information. Our first episode today, we're going to be focusing on time management. And in my opinion, this is one of the ways that you can either create explosive growth in your life and in your business, or you can just kind of shoot yourself in the foot. Either way, it doesn't really matter. If you have extremely poor time management skills, if you are not wickedly aware of how time passes and of how you control time and how time controls you and of how other people control your time, what you're going to find is that you will blow through a day, you'll blow through a week, you'll blow through a month, you'll blow through 40 years of your life, and all of a sudden you'll blink and you'll realize, where did it all go? The people that have success, and even personally for me, when I have success, I find out it's only because I used my time well. And I'm just talking about, planning this here and there, maybe getting up on time, maybe going to bed at a later time. No, to be a real high achiever, what you have to do is get wickedly aware of your time. You have to govern, you have to manage every single second. Now, some people are not going to be willing to make that commitment to the time management. That's okay. To each his own. Everyone has a different level of time management. However, if you really want to be a high achiever, you are going to have to look at that clock and you're going to have to watch it like a hawk. There are so many things in this day and age, in 2012, almost 2013, that are built to distract us from getting through our day. What I've noticed that happens with time management, again, this is primarily with my experience and some people I've talked to, is that most people don't really have control of the time in their day. They wake up in the morning, they get ready for work, they go to work, they sit at their desk, and basically the only way they get things done they're interrupt driven. In other words, they sit there at their desk and they get an email and they click on the email and they act on that. Or somebody walks up to them, or they get a phone call, or they get a text message, or they get a cell phone call. They are interrupt-driven people, and they are not good at controlling their own time. I can speak very well from this because this has happened to me before. And if you're not careful, it can happen to you. It's a mindset change, and that's one of the points we're going to be covering today, is the mindset of when you wake up in the morning to realize that your time is yours. It's not somebody else's. And that's kind of an eye-opener to a lot of people. They think, I go to work, it's my boss's time. Aren't I there for them? No, not really. What you're there for, what you have to realize is to get anywhere in life, the time is yours. From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, your life should be centered around your time management. Yes, I understand you have to be at a desk 8 hours, and you have to take care of the kids, and you have to go to the gym, and you have to go shopping, and you have to put gas in the car. But realize that you need to look at your day as an 8-hour block or a 10-hour block or a 12-hour block of your time and place things on it. Don't just let the day happen. Your goal should be to place things on it. And if you've been reading my blog recently at stopdoingnothing.com, I'm in the middle of a 5-part series about time management. And the first item when it comes to time management that I think people really kind of suffer in is not planning their day. Most people I know get up, and when it comes to time management, what they do is they just sit there and let the day happen to them. When they get up in the morning, they kind of let the kids control their day. They let their spouse control their day. When they're driving into work, they just kind of let things happen once they get there. They're interrupt-driven. And this was the very first blog post in that whole series of blog posts recently I was telling you about that you should go back and read, is that what I want you to start doing, if you want to be a real high achiever, is take a look at how your day is managed, and the day before, the week before, whatever, plan out your day and plan out your time with the things that you want to accomplish. Your calendar should not just be an open block of 8 or 12 hours just waiting for things to happen, and then you get a meeting request, you get a phone call request, and then you start filling in your calendar. No, a day or two before, you should be looking at your upcoming days, and you should be trying to fill every available hour with something. It might not be a large task like conduct a meeting, but it should be blocks of time that are in line with what you're trying to accomplish in your life. If there's a particular software program you have to work on because you're a programmer, set aside a particular amount of time for that. If there's an amount of time that you need to do to get through emails, set aside time for that. If there's an amount of time you want to use to screw around on social media, then put that on your calendar. Say, you know what? From 10:30 to 11, I'm going to get on Facebook and use some brainless time to basically like pictures and do some Pinterest stuff and get on LinkedIn and do some other things. Schedule that time. If you don't, you will just randomly decide in your calendar and in your timeline of the day that it's okay to just stop what you're doing and jump to another task. You might get bored at 10:30. You might get bored at 11 o'clock and decide, you know what, here's the time I want to hop on Facebook and get something done because I'm bored with what I'm doing. I think that goof-off time is okay. I think that relaxing time was okay. I think that spending time on social media is okay. I think, to tell you the truth, spending brainless time in front of a TV and watching cartoons is also okay. Nothing wrong with it. I am all about the downtime. Trust me. I just got back from a 10-day cruise. I could not be a bigger fan of the downtime than I am right now. However, your downtime, what I've noticed happens, at least in my case, and a couple of people's cases, what happens is that you feel bad sometimes about wasting time on things after the fact because there are so many other things in life that you want to accomplish, that you want to achieve, that you want to grow, that you want to blossom, that you want to prosper with, and you feel a little bit bad because you blew time on Facebook. You know what? If you schedule your time, if you schedule your productivity time, and you schedule your Facebook time, and you schedule your goof-off time, you don't feel as bad. Okay? So what I'm saying is that if you decide to spend time doing something that's considered a brainless activity, as long as you plan that out, and as long as you know you're going to have a fixed start time and a fixed end time for that activity, you will feel a lot better when it comes to the productive time. If you get 2 hours of a blog post written out or a 2-hour video or whatever, you're going to feel great because you know that was highly productive time, it was highly focused time, and you accomplished something with your time. So my first point of those 5 blog posts, we're going to get through 3 of them, is to plan out your day. Plan everything. Look at your calendar. Make sure that your calendar, the majority of time of your calendar, is filled with useful, productive information. If you've always talked about starting a blog, you know what? Set aside 3 hours tomorrow and start that blog. If you've always wanted to write a book, set aside an hour tomorrow, open up a free Gmail account, start a Google document, and start writing that book. But put that time on your calendar and stick to it. Use the reminders feature. During that focus time, you should also do whatever you can to remove some distractions from around you. We're going to get to that here in a little bit. But my first point of the 3 today is going to be to plan everything that is on your calendar. Plan your time. What is it? Plan your execution, execute your plan. I believe that's how the phrase goes. And another driver for this that I will give you that really helps me is a task list, and I convert my tasks into timeline items on my calendar. And I go back and forth between Remember the Milk and my Google Calendar for this. I live and breathe inside of my Google Calendar. It syncs up perfectly with my iPhone. It syncs up perfectly with all my Android devices. And so that's how I manage my calendar there. And then I use Remember the Milk, my virtual assistant, and I use Remember the Milk to just kind of keep track of the things that have to be done. And so I will copy things over from Remember the Milk to my Google Calendar. My Google Calendar syncs up with everything. I got my reminders all set up. To me, when I use those systems the way they should be used, that is the perfect time management feature. And something else that I like to use when it comes to time management, which was the second of the two blog posts, was the concept of using timers when you start a task. And what I'm referring to there is if you're going to start on a task for 30 minutes or 60 minutes or whatever, you know what? Set up a timer so you can focus on that task. You're not looking at the time constantly, but you can focus on that task, and when that's done, you get some kind of visual or audio type notification, and you know it's time to take a break from that task. And sometimes this is called the Pomodoro technique, Pomodoro, I believe, and that technique says focus on something really strong for 25 minutes, then take a 5-minute break, and do that like 4 times, and then maybe at the end take, a longer break. I don't care what the technique is you call, but find some way to time what you're working on. Set a timer, shut down everything else, shut down email, shut down your phone if the timer's on your phone, and focus on that particular task. What I've done recently is I found some great timer apps for my Android device. And in addition to having the time countdown, it also has a visual indicator of the segment of time. So the entire segment of time, if you will, is a circle, and you can slowly see it's ticking down over time. And the thing I noticed, at least, is that when I have that visual indication always in front of me, that I am more interested in getting things done, that I am more interested in getting as much done in that time period as possible. And then that break I take afterwards, whether it's a 5-minute break or a 10-minute break or a 15-minute break, that break I take there it feels really good. Your goof-off time feels much better once you know you've had a highly productive time. For those of you that just may be tuning in, or the call-in number is 213-943-3434, and my name is Patrick Allman, and you are listening to the Stop Doing Nothing radio show on Blog Talk Radio. And what we're in the process of doing right now is going through different time management philosophies and techniques that I have learned help me over time. And if you go to, I was talking about, if you go to the website right now, stopdoingnothing.com, you'll see I'm in the middle of a 5-post blog series that talks about these. And the one that we're doing right now is number 2 of 5, which is using timers and reminders. So I've already talked about using timers. As you work on a task, start a timer and make sure that you are highly productive during that time. Something else that I would encourage you to do is to, when you plan events that involve other people, don't plan them up until exactly the time you say the meeting's supposed to last. And Google thought of this people thought about this before, but Google actually has this built into their calendar. If you plan a 60-minute meeting, that 60-minute meeting really needs to be a 45 or a 50-minute meeting with time to wrap up at the end. Because what inevitably happens with 60-minute meetings is that you will sit down at the beginning of the 60 minutes. Not everybody is there at the beginning of the 60 minutes. So you kind of have small talk, you kind of putz around, you kind of wait around, and then the last person gets there, 6:05, 6:10. You hold the meeting. People aren't the least bit interested in finishing early because people got there late. All of a sudden now your meeting that was supposed to end on the hour ends at 5 minutes after the hour, ends at 10 minutes after the hour, and all of a sudden your follow-up, your next meeting, your next task gets delayed because of just the overruns. And then what ends up happening sometimes is this spirals off into your other tasks and into the rest of your day. So plan your meetings for about 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes shorter than the typical meeting time. Don't do 60-minute meetings. Say we're going to do a 45-minute meeting with a 15-minute follow-up, or we're going to do a 50-minute meeting. And what's really cool, like I said, is Google Calendar has this particular feature built in. You can turn on your Google Calendar to where when you highlight on your calendar, you put a 60-minute meeting, it knows to plan it for 50 minutes. When you highlight your Google Calendar and you put in a 30-minute meeting, it only allocates it for 25. So your meetings end up being from like 8 o'clock to 8:50 or 8 o'clock to 8:25. I don't know who thought about that in the Google Calendar team, but that is just brilliant in my opinion. It always leaves a gap at the end of every meeting so you have a way to recover and plan for the next one that might be right after it. So again, don't use all your available times in meetings. Use timers, and of course, use reminders. If you are using something like a Google Calendar or an Outlook calendar, there is a way to set up a default reminder amount. In other words, when you drop something on their calendar, you should have a reminder 60 minutes out, and you should have a reminder 20 minutes out. 2 hours out. And if you're really bold, you can even put one maybe 4 hours out so you get in the mindset of what's coming up in your day. But use the reminder feature heavily. I'm going to come from this from the perspective of using Google Calendar because I use Gmail for everything. But for all of my Google Calendar appointments, I have like a 2-hour pop-up and a 2-hour email send to me to remind me that the appointment is up. And I rely on those to let me know what's coming up in my day. So as far as what was the last features we covered, using timers is important, using reminders is important, and also starting meetings on time and ending meetings early. I didn't talk about this too much, but let's briefly talk about this. Starting meetings on time. I know that you've heard before that you should wait for everyone to get to a particular meeting. And there may be some special exceptions where you have to wait for that in the case of like a boss-employee situation or a hierarchy. But for the most part, I am under the belief that if you pick a time for a meeting to start, then when the clock hits that time, that is when the meeting should start. I've noticed we've gone away from that, whether it's traveling to a coffee shop for a meeting or whether it's doing a meeting in a conference room. We seem to have no problem anymore with just letting the meeting start lag 5 or 10 minutes because somebody else's poor time management affected our time management. If possible, I would encourage you to start exercising this philosophy. The meeting starts 8 o'clock, that is when I start talking. If you're late and you missed it. But it's not the fault of the person starting the meeting for starting it early. They started on time. What will happen here is people will learn over time that your meetings start on time. If a meeting is planned with you, the attendees will know that they better get there when they are supposed to. They may be able to screw around on somebody else's meeting. One of your coworkers who doesn't mind starting their meetings 5 to 10 minutes late, they may realize, you know what, that's okay. I can be late to that meeting. That person doesn't care. But if they want to get the full effect of your meeting, if they want to be there and make sure that they are involved and included in everything, they are going to learn. You're going to be the one establishing the baseline. It's your time, and it's severely disrespectful to start a meeting late for 4 other people if person number 5 could not get there on time. Those 4 other people went out of their way to be there early or on time. The best thing you can do is to just get started with the meeting and help those people that were there on time get in, get productive, and get back to their regular daily routine. Eventually, that 5th person, that one person that's always late to everything, and by the way, I have been that person will learn that your meeting times are not to be screwed around with. So, what have we talked about? Meeting timers, meeting reminders, starting and ending meetings on time. Again, I want to reemphasize, make sure you end your meetings when you say you're going to end them, if not a little bit early. The best thing you can do for a 60-minute meeting is get done in 55 minutes. So that was the second of the 3 blog posts that are out there right now. The third one is a technology-related one. This is the third of 5 blog posts up on Stop Doing Nothing right now. And this has to do with when you are focusing on something using a timer, and you have decided that my task is to write this, or work on this, or staple this, or coordinate this, or collate this. What you need to do is you need to turn off any kind of possible interruption. And in this day and age, it's kind of hard, but one of the things you may need to do is start turning off your email and start turning off your phone. I have a smartphone, just like a lot of my friends. I am a smartphone addict. I love the fact that my smartphone is constantly checking my email, the fact that my smartphone always has my updated text messages, it always has my Facebook updates, it always has my Twitter updates. I love having a smartphone in my pocket. Do not ever doubt that. However, that smartphone can be the bane of my existence sometimes. And what I mean there is that thing can interrupt me and kill any productivity. I have a coding background, okay? So I have no problem sitting in front of a computer and working on databases and PHP code and WordPress and things like that. All it takes is for me to be deep into a WordPress training session and for a text message to pop up, and I will completely ignore what I'm doing and go look at the text message. It's standard practice for us. And what happens now is not only have we interrupted that really intense thinking time where we're focusing on writing part of our book or focusing on our technical work, we have to go answer that distraction, and then we have to get back into that productive mode. The longer you spend on a particular task, and let's say writing, for example, I have a hard time sitting down and getting started on writing. However, once I get rolling on writing, after about 5 or 10 minutes, I've noticed it's actually not that hard. The words start flowing easier, the thoughts start coming, other ideas for more books start coming. Just the content just starts flowing out of me. But I have to get through this initial time of getting productive. If I start throwing in text messages or emails or phone calls or whatever else at that time, I'm going to kill any writing time. So my suggestion here, my third point of my 5-point blog post is find ways to start turning off any and all technology when it comes to your focus time. Turn off your cell phone. Remember, for those of you that may not be the youngest part of the audience right now, remember there was a time where you did not have a telephone on your hip 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Remember the time when the only telephone that you ever had was in the office, or in the kitchen. If you were outside playing, you know what? No telephone. If you were outside flying, if you were outside with the kids, if you were outside gardening, if you were driving someplace, there was no phone. The only way to get a phone call used to be you had to be in the kitchen. And also, if you weren't there, the call didn't get answered. It just rang, and the person called back. With very few exceptions, your phone calls are not emergencies. If your mom calls, ask about a recipe, it's not an emergency. If somebody from work calls, unless you're a heart surgeon, it's not an emergency. And by the way, if you're a heart surgeon and someone calls you because it's an emergency and you're not at the hospital, there's not much you can do about it anyways. Very few of us have jobs or have tasks where we need to be by a phone instantly, and we have to be available instantly for when that person or for when anybody wants to call in or contact us. I work in technology. I work in sales. I work in marketing. You know what? There are no technology issues unless something is literally on fire. There are no sales emergency issues, and there are no marketing emergency issues. I like to tell people, you know what? If you think that something is an urgent issue, go ahead and make a decision if you can't get a hold of me. And if it's wrong, you know what? We'll fix it. And more than likely, it's not wrong. It's just going to be a matter of opinion. But we get way too used to giving up our time. And I don't believe that you should give it up so easily. You should be extremely protective of your time. You should treat your time like you have a limited amount of it, and you should protect it and use it for the things that you want to use it for. So every time you answer a text message, every time you respond to an email, every time you take a phone call, think about the time you're giving up and think about the things that you'd rather be doing with your time. It's not uncommon to hear a friend or family member say, you know what, I've always wanted to write a book, but I've always wanted to get to the gym, but I've always wanted to start my own business, but. Well, you have control over that time, and I want you to realize that. Take control over your calendar. Take control over your time. For any of you that want to dial in at the last minute, our phone number again is 424-222-5282. My name is Patrick Allman, and I'm host of your Blog Talk Radio show. It's not the Blog Talk Radio show. It's the Stop Doing Nothing High Achievers weekly call. Next week, I'm not quite sure what the topic's going to be because I'm still outlining all these topics. However, it will be the same time. It will be at Thursday at 4 p.m. Central Time. So what does that give us? That's 4 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Mountain Time, and 2 p.m. Pacific Time. Good old California. I love my LA. I love my California. So those are your time zones, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But I live in the Central Time Zone, so that's what I'm going to focus on. 4 p.m. Central Time for the next Stop Doing Nothing High Achievers Hour. If you haven't done so yet, please go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/stopdoingnothing. Follow us there and leave a comment. Let me know that you listened to the show. Let me know what was helpful, and let me know what you're going to do in your life to change to build your dream day. If you're more of a Twitter fan, you can find us on Twitter. Our Twitter account is twitter.com/stopdoingnothing with no G, so it's nothing. The way Twitter works out is I can't get the entire D-O-I-N-G on the end, so it's Stop Doing Nothing on Twitter. And LinkedIn, we have a private membership group called Stop Doing Nothing, the group for high achievers. You can go there and either go through my account, Patrick Allman, or you can also go through, search the online groups there in LinkedIn and join it that way. If you are an iTunes person, check out the Blog Talk Radio show page at blogtalkradio.com/stopdoingnothing. You can subscribe to this podcast via iTunes, so that way in your sync process, you're being sure to get all of the latest episodes down onto your device. Again, my name is Patrick Allman. We are at just about 28 minutes in the interest of efficient time management. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sign off. I'm going to say thank you for listening this week. Tune in next week. I'd love to hear any feedback from you if you thought this information was useful. The Facebook page, to tell you the truth, is probably the best place to leave feedback. You can also call me. You can also email me, either one. But go to the Facebook page, like the Facebook page, leave a comment, share it with a friend, recommend it, subscribe to it, set it up so you get notifications. The Facebook page to share some wisdom, to share some motivation, to share what it takes to help you get to the ideal day. My name is Patrick Allman from StopDoingNothing.com. We will talk to you next week. Have a great day and a great weekend, and start building that dream day.